The hook tore through the air like a gunshot, yanking Owen backward into the churning black water of Flathead Lake. I lunged for him, my fingers grazing his sleeve just as the icy grip swallowed him whole, and in that split second, our eyes locked. His wide with terror, mine burning with a fear I'd buried deeper than any secret. "Jack!" he gasped as he surfaced, thrashing. But it wasn't the cold or the depth that chilled me to the bone. It was the way his hand reached not for the dock, but for me. We'd come to Montana chasing the ghost of summers past. Two kids from the Rust Belt sprawl of Detroit, who thought a week on the water could stitch up the fraying seams of our lives. Owen, with his easy grin and calloused hands from years swinging a wrench at the auto plant, had always been the straight arrow, the one who dated cheerleaders in high school, married his high school sweetheart right out of boot camp, and came home from Afghanistan with a Purple Heart and a divorce decree. Me, Jack Harlan, the quiet one who fixed engines by day and nursed crushes on the wrong side of the garage door by night. Gay in a town that still whispered fairy, like it was a curse. I'd learned to laugh it off, to bury it under layers of flannel and Bud Light. But Owen? He was my anchor, the brother I never had, the one person who'd never made me feel like I was carrying a bomb in my chest. That first morning, as the sun clawed its way over the Bitterroot Mountains, we loaded the old aluminum canoe with coolers and rods, the air thick with pine and the promise of escape. "Remember that time we snuck out to Lake St. Clair?" Owen said, heaving the tackle box into the boat with a grunt. His voice was gravelly from too many smokes, but it carried that old warmth, the kind that made you forget the world was spinning without mercy. I nodded, forcing a chuckle as I steadied the canoe against the pebbled shore. "Yeah, and you hooked my eyebrow instead of the base. Dad nearly skinned you alive." He laughed, that deep, rolling bark that echoed off the water, and for a moment it was like we were 18 again, invincible, uncomplicated. But we weren't. Owen's marriage had crumbled under the weight of his silences, the nightmares that woke him screaming in the dark. He'd moved back into his folks' basement after the papers were signed, bouncing from bar to bar, chasing the high of deployment days. And me? I'd finally come out to my sister last Christmas, over eggnog and tears, but telling Owen felt like defusing a grenade with my teeth. What if it blew us apart? So I kept it locked down, told myself this trip was just fishing, just bros reconnecting. Nothing more. We paddled out into the glassy expanse, the lake a mirror reflecting the jagged peaks and the first blush of autumn on the aspens. Montana was Owen's idea, a reset button, he called it, scraping together his savings for the gas and the cabin rental. No cell service, no bullshit. He'd texted me from some dive bar in Billings. "Just you, me, and whatever's biting." I'd packed light, jeans worn soft at the knees, a thermos of black coffee, and the weight of unspoken words pressing on my ribs like a spare tire. By midday, we'd anchored in a cove where the trout ran thick, the water so clear you could see the shadows of boulders 30 feet down. Owen cast his line with that effortless flick, the lure arcing like a prayer. "Your turn, Harlan," he said, passing me the rod. Our fingers brushed, accidental, fleeting, and I felt that familiar jolt, the one I'd chalked up to static electricity for years. I reeled back, focusing on the bobber's dance, but my mind wandered to the what-ifs. What if he knew? What if he didn't care? Or worse, what if he did, and it poisoned everything? We talked in fits and starts as the sun climbed. Owen about the divorce, how Sarah had accused him of being half there, a ghost in their bed since the IED that took his squad. "I love her, Jack." Loved. But war. It rewires you, makes you question shit you never thought to. His voice cracked on the last word, and he stared at the water like it held answers. I wanted to reach across the boat, to tell him he wasn't broken, that the man who'd pulled me out of that high school bonfire brawl was still in there, fierce and whole. Instead, I muttered, "You're not a ghost to me, man. Never were." He looked at me then, really looked, his blue eyes narrowing against the glare. "Yeah? Then why do you look at me like I'm about to vanish?" The question hung there, heavier than the tackle, and I felt my throat tighten. I opened my mouth to deflect, but the words stuck. Before I could muster a joke, his rod bent double, a strike big and mean. "Holy shit!" he whooped, reeling furiously. The line sang, the boat rocking as the fish fought. I grabbed the net, leaning over the side, but in the chaos, Owen overcompensated, his boots slipping on the slick aluminum. That's when it happened. The hook tore free, not from the fish, but whipping wild, snagging his shirt and yanking him overboard. Time fractured. He hit the water with a splash that sprayed my face, cold and sharp as regret. "Owen!" My shout echoed uselessly as I dropped the net, diving after him without a life jacket, the lake closing over me like a grave. The world muffled, bubbles, thrash of limbs, the burn in my lungs. I surfaced gasping, spotting his blonde head bobbing, arms flailing against the current. The cove wasn't deep, but panic makes monsters of shallows. I swam hard, closing the gap, my hand finding his collar just as he went under again. "Grab on!" I yelled, hooking my arm under his, hauling him toward the canoe. He coughed, sputtering, his weight dragging us both under for a heartbeat before we broke free. We made it to the shallows, collapsing onto the muddy bank in a tangle of wet denim and labored breaths. His chest heaved against mine, our legs entwined, the scent of lake water and fear thick between us. For a frozen moment, neither moved. Then, slowly, his hand came up, not to push away, but to cup the back of my neck, fingers trembling in my damp hair. "Jack!" he whispered, voice raw as stripped wire. His eyes searched mine, pupils blown wide, and in them I saw not the straight-laced soldier, but something fractured open, vulnerable. The air crackled, charged like the storm clouds gathering over the peaks. I should have pulled back, made a joke about nearly becoming gator bait in trout country. But I didn't, because in that instant, as his thumb brushed my jaw, I realized the hook hadn't been in the fish at all. It had been in us, buried deep, waiting to tear free. We lay there until the shivering set in, the adrenaline crash leaving us hollowed out. Owen sat up first, peeling off his soaked flannel to wring it out. His skin goose-pimpled under the thin white tee clinging like a second skin. "That was stupid," he muttered, but there was no anger in it, just exhaustion, laced with something softer. I nodded, wringing my own shirt, avoiding his gaze. The moment had passed, or so I told myself, but the echo of his touch lingered, a brand on my pulse. Back at the cabin that evening, the wood stove crackled against the chill seeping through the pine walls. We changed into dry clothes, his borrowed sweatpants hanging loose on my frame, and cracked open a six-pack, the cans sweating beads like our unspoken tension. The cabin was rustic Americana. Antler chandelier, faded quilts, a stack of field and stream magazines yellowed with age. Outside, the lake lapped at the dock like it was whispering secrets. Owen leaned against the counter, nursing his beer, his hair still damp and tousled. "You saved my ass out there, Harlan. Again." He raised his can in a mock toast, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. There was a hitch in his posture, a wariness I'd seen in the foxholes of his stories, the one that said he was scanning for IEDs in everyday ground. "Someone's got to keep you from drowning in your own damassery." I shot back, trying for levity. It landed flat. He set the can down, crossing his arms, the muscles in his forearms flexing from years of hauling gear. "It's not just the lake, is it?" His voice was low, deliberate, like he was stepping onto thin ice. "You've been off since I got back, like you're holding your breath around me." My heart slammed against my ribs, the room suddenly too small, the fire too hot. I took a long pull from my beer, buying time. "War changes people, Owen. You know that. And life's been complicated." The words tasted like ash. Complicated. What a coward's euphemism for the truth clawing up my throat. "I'm in love with you, have been since we were kids stealing smokes behind the bleachers, and every time you call me bro." It carves a little deeper. He pushed off the counter, closing the distance in 2 strides, his bare feet silent on the rag rug. Up close, I could smell the soap on his skin, the faint tang of lake water clinging to his pores. "Talk to me, Jack. We're out here in the middle of nowhere. No Sarah. No garage bullshit. No pretending." His hand hovered near my arm, not quite touching, as if he, too, felt the invisible line we towed all our lives. I set my beer down, the clink loud in the quiet. "I'm gay, Owen." The confession burst out, unpolished, stripped bare. "No preamble, no softening. Just the fact hanging there like smoke." His face didn't crumple in disgust or shock. No, it softened, a flicker of recognition dawning, like he'd been waiting for the punchline to a joke he'd half-guessed. "I figured," he said quietly, not pulling away. "Or hoped. Shit, I don't know." He rubbed the back of his neck, a flush creeping up his collar. "After the divorce, I started thinking about why it never felt right. With her, with anyone. And then I'd look at you, and it'd hit me. How easy it is with you. How it's always been." The world tilted. I searched his face for the lie, the recoil, but there was only Owen, raw, real. The boy who'd shared his last Snickers in the desert heat. Now a man unraveling in the firelight. "What are you saying?" My voice cracked, barely above a whisper. He stepped closer, his hand finally landing on my shoulder, warm and steady. "I'm saying I've been scared shitless of this, of losing you, but out there today, when you pulled me up, clicked. You're not just my best friend, Jack. You're the one who makes the noise in my head go quiet." His lips met mine then, tentative at first, a question wrapped in salt and uncertainty. I answered with my hands on his waist, pulling him in, the kiss deepening like a current we'd both been fighting. It wasn't fireworks or violins, just us, two Midwestern boys tasting the truth we denied for decades. The fire popped, the lake sighed outside, and for the first time, I breathed easy. But nothing in life comes without hooks. The next morning dawned crisp, the kind of blue sky Montana day that tricks you into believing in forever. We fished again, but the rhythm had shifted, brushes of knuckles on the reel, shared glances over the water that lingered too long. Owen's laugh came freer, his touches casual but electric. A hand on my knee to steady the boat, fingers lingering on my neck as he helped me cast. By afternoon, we'd beached the canoe on a secluded spit, sandwiches forgotten as we lay back on the pine needles, shoulders touching, talking about everything and nothing. "You ever think about leaving Detroit?" he asked, tracing patterns in the dirt with a stick. The aspens rustled overhead, gold leaves drifting like confetti. "All the time," I admitted. "Seattle, maybe. Or Portland. Somewhere with rain and rainbows, literal and otherwise." I shot him a grin, testing the waters. He propped on an elbow, looking down at me, his face shadowed by the branches. "What if we did it together? Ditch the rust for the coast. Start over." My chest ached with the beauty of it. The dream I'd nursed in stolen moments, now voiced by him. "You'd leave your folks? The plant? For this?" His eyes held mine, fierce. "For us? In a heartbeat." We kissed there, slow and unhurried, the forest our witness. It felt like absolution, like the universe had finally aligned its stars over this forgotten cove. But as the sun dipped, casting long shadows, my phone buzzed in the canoe, service flickering in like a bad omen. A text from my sister. Owen's ex called. Said he's seeing someone new. "Be careful, bro, heartbreak's a bitch." I stared at the screen, the words blurring. Seeing someone? We were barely a day into whatever this was. Owen, oblivious, called from the water. "You coming, or what?" I pocketed the phone, forcing a smile, but the seed of doubt took root, thorny and insistent. That night, over venison stew from the cabin's ancient freezer, the questions simmered unspoken. Owen was all easy affection. Foot hooked around my ankle under the table, stories of desert patrols laced with inside jokes. But when he stepped out for a smoke on the porch, I couldn't shake the text. Sarah had always been territorial, the kind of woman who saw threats in shadows. Still, it gnawed. Was this real, or just a rebound for him? A soldier's R&R from his own wreckage? I joined him outside, the night air sharp with wood smoke and stars so thick they pressed down like a blanket. He offered me the cigarette, our fingers brushing. "Beni footing." "Just this." I gestured vaguely at the dark lake, the cabin's glow. "Feels too good, like it's gonna snag and pull us under." He exhaled smoke toward the heavens, watching it curl. "I get that. After the blast in Kandahar, lost 3 guys, nearly my leg. I woke up thinking every day's borrowed. So yeah, I'm scared. But I'm all in, Jack. You." His hand found mine in the dark, squeezing. I wanted to believe him, to drown the doubt in the warmth of his palm. "Yeah," I whispered. "All in." We made love that night. Not with the frenzy of desperation, but with the quiet reverence of men learning each other's maps. His scars under my fingers, my hesitations melting under his patience. It was messy, profound, a bridge from friends to lovers built on years of trust. Afterward, tangled in quilts that smelled of mothballs and memory, he murmured against my neck, "I love you. You know that?" The words were a lifeline, pulling me from the undertow. "I do now," I replied, and meant it. But betrayal doesn't announce itself with fanfare. It creeps in like fog off the water. The third day, we hiked into the backcountry, chasing a trail to Holland Falls that Owen swore was life-changing. The path wound through lodgepole pines, the ground carpeted in needles that muffled our steps. He walked ahead, pack slung low, pointing out elk tracks and the call of a red-tailed hawk wheeling overhead. "This is it, man," he said, turning with that boyish grin. "America the beautiful, right in our backyard." I lagged, phone in hand, service spotty, but the text had multiplied. "Another from my sister, checked with a mutual. Owen's been texting Sarah, talking reconciliation. Swear I'm not stirring shit, just protect yourself." My stomach twisted. Reconciliation? After everything? We reached the falls by noon, a thundering cascade plummeting into a turquoise pool, mist rising like steam from a kettle. Owen stripped to his boxers, cannonballing in with a whoop that echoed off the cliffs. "Come on!" he yelled, surfacing with water streaming from his hair. I hesitated, the phone burning in my pocket like contraband. What if it was nothing? A miscommunication? A jealous ex stirring the pot? I dove in, the cold shocking the doubt away, if only for a moment. We swam to the base of the falls, the roar drowning thought, his body close in the churn. When we climbed out, dripping and laughing, he pulled me into a kiss that tasted of minerals and promise. "Marry me," he said suddenly, half joking, half not, his forehead against mine. "Screw Detroit. We'll do it here under the falls. Vows in the mist." My laugh bubbled up, genuine despite the knot in my gut. "You're crazy, McAllister." "Crazy for you," he countered. And for a heartbeat, the world was perfect, water-slick skin, pounding hearts, the raw poetry of it all. But that night, back at the cabin, the fog rolled in thick, blanketing the lake in white. Owen dozed early, exhausted from the hike, his snores a rumble from the bunk. I slipped outside with my phone, signal bars flickering like a dying pulse. I scrolled his texts, not proud, but desperation has no manners. What I found gutted me. Messages to Sarah, timestamps from the drive out. "Miss you. This trip's making me realize what I lost. Come back to me?" Heart emojis. Promises of counseling, of second chances. The latest, "Tell no one. Especially Jack. He's like family, but this is us." Betrayal hit like the lake's depths. Cold, suffocating. He'd kissed me, held me, whispered love like it was scripture, all while weaving a net to pull her back in. Was I the rebound? The experiment? The safe harbor while he charted course home to straight-laced normalcy? Tears burned hot, mixing with the chill. I wanted to shake him awake, demand answers, but the hurt rooted me still. A tree felled in its prime. Dawn broke gray and unforgiving, the fog lifting to reveal a world scraped clean. Owen stirred as I packed the cooler, his eyes bleary but bright. "Morning, handsome," he said, pulling me down for a kiss that twisted the knife deeper. I let him numb, the lie coating my tongue like bile. We fished in silence that day, the bobbers dancing mockingly on the surface. Tension hummed between us, thicker than the mist had been. Finally, as a rainbow trout struck and Owen reeled it in with mechanical precision, he set the rod down. "What's eating you, Jack? Talk." I stared at the fish flopping on the deck, scales glinting like shattered trust. "Sarah," I said flatly, "you're going back to her." His face drained of color, the easy mask cracking. "How?" "Saw the texts. Last night, while you slept the sleep of the innocent." He recoiled as if slapped, scrambling for words. "It's not Jack, listen." I was confused. The divorce, the war. I thought maybe I could fix it, be the man she wanted. But then you, us, and it all fell into place. Those messages, I deleted the thread this morning. I swear. Lies on top of lies. I spat, the hurt erupting like lava. You used me to figure your shit out, while you dangled second chances to her like bait. No. He lunged across the boat, grabbing my arms, his grip desperate. I was scared, okay? Scared of this, of wanting you so bad it terrified me. But it's real. You're real. Tears streaked his face now, mirroring mine, the boat rocking with our anguish. Don't throw us away over a mistake. The lake mocked us, serene as ever, while our world capsized. I shoved him back, not hard, but enough to feel the fracture. A mistake? That's what I am. My voice broke, raw as the wound. 20 years, Owen. 20 years I've waited for you to see me. And now that you do, it's just a detour. He slumped, defeated, the fight leaching out like air from a punctured tire. I love you, he whispered, but it echoed hollow, tainted by the night before. We beached the canoe in silence, the trek back to the cabin a death march through golden woods that now felt like a cage. Inside, I threw clothes into my duffel, the zippers rasped the only sound. Owen watched from the doorway, arms crossed like a barrier. Don't go, please, we can fix this. I paused, bag half-zipped, the weight of it all crashing down. Fix what? Trust? You can't reel that back in once it's snapped. But even as I said it, doubt flickered. His eyes, red-rimmed and pleading, the same ones that had pulled me from that bonfire all those years ago. He crossed the room in a blur, dropping to his knees before me, hands on my thighs. Then let me prove it. Call her. Right now. Tell her it's over. For good. His voice trembled. The soldier's steel melted to vulnerability. Or delete her number yourself. Anything. Just stay. The room spun, emotion a whirlwind. Rage, love, the bone-deep ache of almost. I sank to the floor beside him, our foreheads touching, breaths mingling in the charged space. Why me, Owen? Why now? Because you're home, he said simply, tears spilling. The only place that's ever felt right. We clung there, two broken men on a worn pine floor, the fire long cold. Outside, the lake whispered of second chances, of hooks that bend but don't always break. I pulled out my phone, his number glowing under contacts. Hers too, unopened. With shaking fingers, I drafted the message. It's done. For real this time. Find your peace elsewhere. Sent. Deleted. He kissed me then, not with passion's fire, but with the quiet flame of redemption. Slow, forgiving, a vow etched in salt. Thank you, he breathed, and I felt the hook reform, stronger, tempered in fire. The drive home was a montage of Americana. Endless highways flanked by amber waves, truck stops with greasy spoons and neon signs flickering, open 24/7. We didn't talk much, hands linked over the console. The radio humming Springsteen ballads about blue-collar hearts and open roads. Detroit loomed on the horizon, smog-choked and familiar, but it felt different now. Less a trap, more a launchpad. Owen moved out of his folks' basement that week, crashing on my couch until we pooled cash for a one-bedroom in Ferndale, the neighborhood with its rainbow flags and craft breweries. Coming out was a slow burn. Awkward family dinners where my dad grunted approval over pot roast. Owen's mom hugging him tight with teary eyes and, as long as you're happy, son. His buddies from the plant ribbed him at first. McAllister's gone Hollywood, but loyalty runs deep in Motor City veins. They showed up with six-packs and stories, toasting to whatever floats your boat. There were rough nights, echoes of betrayal surfacing like ghosts in the dark. I'd wake sweating, convinced it was a dream, his side of the bed empty. But he'd pull me close, murmuring apologies into my hair until dawn. His heartbeat a steady drum against my doubt. Therapy helped, group sessions at the VA for him, solo dives into my own closets for me. We learned the language of scars. His from shrapnel and silence, mine from hiding in plain sight. 6 months in, we drove back to Montana, not for escape but reclamation. The cabin waited, dustier but defiant, the lake unchanged. We fished at dusk, lines cutting the water like promises. No hooks tore free that trip. Instead, we caught trout and truths, grilling them over open flame as stars wheeled overhead. Owen proposed on that dock, the one where it had all begun. Not with a ring, but a simple braided cord from fishing line, knotted with care. Marry me, Jack. Not for show but for us. The long haul. I said yes, tears blurring the moon on the water. And in that moment, I saw our story not as drama or betrayal, but as the quiet heroism of two men choosing each other against the tide. Years later, we'd tell it over beers to wide-eyed kids at pride parades. How a fishing trip in Big Sky Country reeled in more than fish. Owen, with his purple heart and his heart on his sleeve. Me, the mechanic who fixed more than engines. We'd built a life. A fixer-upper in the burbs, rescue dogs with slobbery grins, holidays with families that had grown to include each other. It's not fairy tale perfect. No climax without conflict. No love without the drag of the line. But in the American grain of grit and grace we found our current. And every dawn, as the sun gilds the lake of our days, I remember. Sometimes, the best catches aren't planned. They just hook you, deep and true, and change everything.